It's your boy, Mr. Vinnie-Dangerous, and I'm back with another episode of the Dangerous Minds podcast. And we are here to talk about a very important topic, something that is really plaguing our generation. It's been plaguing a lot of people for a long time, but it's become a real hot button thanks to the internet and social media. And this conversation is finally being held not behind closed doors, not in secrecy, but out in the public like it should be. And it is a topic that is too big for myself to cover alone. So I have my good friends from Worthy Women, the support group. Matter of fact, I won't even do it. I can't even do it justice. I'll let them go ahead and give you the gist of everything that Worthy Women is about.
Okay, so my name is Nadia Barrow, and I'm the founder of Worthy Women, which is a support group that started at the campus of North Carolina Central University. The organization was built around sexual assault awareness, and the group was made for women to come together and support each other around healing.
My name is Christina Worthington, and I'm the co-founder of Worthy Women.
Okay, so now you said, just to make sure I got that right. So what is everything that you guys do in the support group?
So basically it's focused on healing. So there's a lot of people who have been traumatized severely by sexual assault and the situations there. So it's just based on the healing of these women.
And I think one of the biggest things that can help the healing process is the conversation of consent. And so it's because a lot of people are really confused on what exactly that means, which is something that it kind of seems like a no-brainer. It's like yes or no is almost as black and white, but a lot of people don't see it that way. And because of that, a lot of people on both sides, men and women, are both put in like heavy danger every day because of it. And one of the biggest things I wanted to talk about was the Brock Turner verdict, because it almost shows how far from black and white this conversation can be, because of the fact that something like that was treated so lightly in the courtroom, and that the fact that somebody that took advantage of this young lady only got maybe 3 months. He was sentenced to 6 and was released in 3 for good behavior. And it's pissed a lot of people off, including myself. It touched me so bad that it actually became the first episode of the podcast. So, the fact that a few months later this guy's still out and this girl's life has changed forever is just something that, really rubs me and a lot of people the wrong way.
I was going to say that it is very sad that over the time this is what it kind of came to. Sexual assault over the years is just like getting more common, and so I think, I don't want to say people aren't taking it less serious, but like in the courtroom it's almost he say, she say most of the time. And it's very unfortunate for the women that do go through that, because it does change your life forever. And basically in our support group we kind of talk about all those things like consent and whether or not your boyfriend can actually rape you, or your husband, or your family member. And it gets kind of tricky sometimes.
Just to add on to what Nadia was saying, we also just live in a rape culture. Like she said, women have been so mistreated, and we're kind of just made to be objects, used for pleasure and not actual human beings. That's another reason why Brock got off so easily. A lot of people do. Especially if you're a man and you're white and you have money, oh yeah, then it's just like, it doesn't even matter. Like, well, it's not that big a deal, and his life would be ruined, but really, that's one of the worst things that could ever happen to a woman. and people don't realize that at all.
And it's brings up an interesting point that this notion of rape culture. Uh, it is very true, but I think it's also being mislabeled in some cases because there's a lot of things that can be considered a simple conversation. And what I was saying with both, what I was saying earlier about how both ends are like very affected by this, because I talked about this in a past podcast episode, and I was talking about this whole start and stop thing that I went through a little while ago when me and a young lady, like, I came over, we hung out at, just this random like bar or whatever. We hung out, then I took her home. It's in the middle of the work week. I'm cold. I really didn't even think about going out because this is like when it's still cold outside. And I was ready to go home. She invited me up. I said, okay, cool. And then it was kind of like things got heated. Things got to the point where it's like things were getting physical. And then all of a sudden she says no, and I stopped. Like, one of the things my pops used to tell me all the time was like, if a woman tells you no, you put your hands up like a gun is to your back. It's kind of like, so there ain't no misconceptions. There's no miscommunication. Like, you said no, and I stopped. That's the end of it. And then, so that's what happened. I stopped. And then, maybe a little bit later, she approached me again. And things got heated. Clothes start coming off, and then all of a sudden it just stops. And then at the same time, but it's like back and forth. It's like, I don't know what to do at this point. So I just walked off. I left. I just felt it went from being, okay, this is sexy, this is something that's exciting, to I'm like a couple no's away from going to jail, and I'm like, and then I'm the one feel like I'm being approached. I'm being like jumped all over, and I was just like, look, let me separate myself. I haven't talked to that girl since, because it's like I'm worried about I'm worried about your mind state. Like, I don't know what could happen if we actually went into intercourse. You could wake up the next morning and say that you were raped, and I can't say nothing because my DNA is there. So it's almost like one of them, I mean, it could possibly get played out in court, but your reputation is shot. Like, I think about the other situation that I want to talk about with the whole Nate Parker situation. Just recently, Birth of a Nation premiered in theaters, and people feel like that movie is tainted. As powerful of a message as the movie holds, because of these allegations that have been brought to the forefront. And for those who don't know, with Nate Parker, he was involved in a rape case back in like 1998, 1999, some years ago, and he was acquitted. He went through the justice system and was acquitted. Now, we all know that the justice system in the United States is tainted and flawed, and there's people just like Brock Turner that get off easy, or they get off with no type of repercussions whatsoever. But let's just say we give this guy, we just say we play it out like how they wanted to play out. If somebody goes to court and there's no evidence brought against this person, and the witness isn't corroborating their story, and they get off, it's like his reputation is shot forever, even if he never did anything. Because if somebody says that, they were taken advantage of, there's still some cases of like women that say it and they don't actually, like, they say it as an act of revenge, or they feel embarrassed, or they feel upset because things didn't turn out the way it was supposed to after things were done, and they use allegations of rape as a way to get even with somebody. So it's like, it's real crazy. And then I think about my brother who just started Central, and I worry about him because he might get caught up in a situation that could turn up way worse for him.
I think that it is unfortunate for people who have to go through situations like that, because there are women in this world or men in this world that use something so or
Traumatic.
and they make a joke out of it. So like over the years, people think it's okay to like cry rape or like it was like it's like a joke. Like I said, people will go around and say, oh, you know, she getting raped, he getting raped, and they use it as like commentary instead of the meaning that it really has. So along with it actually happening to some people, there are people that, you know, falsely accuse others of raping them, and I think that that's like such a terrible thing to do, especially because it takes the focus off the people that actually really did go through it and the people that are really, you know, changed forever because someone took something from them and someone didn't have permission to touch them or to, you know, drug them or whatever the case may be.
All right, and it kind of reminds me of like I kind of compare the situation like that to like let's say like you have a homeless man, right? There's homeless people all over this country. We see them every day when we drive down the street. But then a lot of people are very skeptical to believe if they're really homeless or not because then we've heard the stories of people that actually make like thousands of dollars posing as homeless people, collecting money, and then they'll drive off at the end of the day in like a Mercedes Benz. And you know that was brought to life in like some kind of 60-minute special, like aired like years ago, and people still remember that, and they still remember those stories. So it's almost the same thing. It's like when people take something that is as serious as rape and they start using it as a way to try to get over or take advantage on both ends, then people start to question the legitimacy of somebody that actually went through this. And then it makes cases like Brock Turner that much more dark because those people that were thinking they were getting won over are actually making it harder for the people coming up after them once they get exposed.
Yeah, that's very true. Also, with the Brock Turner thing in particular, there's a whole different other aspects like white supremacy and the fact that he is white privilege.
Mm-hmm.
So on top of him, you know, thinking of one as a white male who's very wealthy, he's been taught his whole life that he can take or get whatever he wants, and that includes women. So that they just become another object to him, and that's how a lot of men are raised, white or black or Hispanic or whatever. And so, you know, we have that going on, and like you said, the women who come forth and really want to get justice are they have the blame placed on them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you think this woman feels about this man who ruined her life only getting 3 months?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's ridiculous. I know some people who don't get the guilty verdict at all, and they deserve it, or don't get caught, or don't like. You hear certain situations about men taking advantage of women, especially like in fraternities and different aspects like that. And nobody wants to believe that that's really happening because they're too good of a man to do something like that. And it's just like, you know, no, men are just raised differently. Like women, basically men are just taught to be, the boys will be boys and they can do whatever they want. And women are taught just keep your legs closed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's just a whole different aspect. And I think that if men were taught what consent is 100%, and not even on some, make sure that if a woman says no, you stop because you might go to jail. Just stop because it's right. Stop because you can ruin this woman's life.
Stop
I think that
uncomfortable.
Right. Instead of like, you know, being selfish and worrying about what you need in that moment, you can get it from somebody else who actually wants to give it to you. You don't have to take it from that person. Especially like there's a lot of aspects where like women are drunk.
Mm-hmm.
So a big thing for me with that one is she can't say yes and she can't say no. She can't say anything. So that's no. It's just it should be something that's common sense, but it's just not for some reason. And like Brock Turner, why do you think that is? Oh, I'm about to score because she's unconscious and she's drunk. No, leave her alone. Take her somewhere safe. And maybe if you're a good enough guy, she'll give it to you willingly, you know? So, I don't know, it's just disgusting, and it's really sad. And like I said, it is also sad about when it's turned over to a woman's just saying it. Also, the women that are just saying it to get back at a guy probably never actually been through it, don't realize how bad it is. So I think it's disgusting too to ruin somebody's life by saying that just because, you know.
And I kind of wanted to touch on like the consent piece that Christina was talking about. I've learned over the years that some people, I'm not going to say guys or girls, I think both, they start to have this like this inferior feeling where they feel like they can, you know, they're the man, or they that bitch, and they can just get whatever they want. So they don't really care about consent, or they're not thinking about consent. And so they get you in a room, then they just feel obligated to have sex with you because you met them after a bar, or because you met them at the club, or, you know, because you was getting gas at 1 o'clock in the morning when you got back from out of town, and you see this guy and y'all exchange numbers. Now he thinks you want to have sex. Like, I think that people, the consent portion just flies over their head, and they're so focused on obligation. They feel like, oh, well, I've been talking to you for 3 months. You obligated to have sex with me. No, I'm not. No one's ever obligated to do anything that I want to do. And in my personal experience of being raped, I was unconscious, and it was just like the worst nightmare of life when you wake up and you know that, you know, something's not right, and next thing you know, you're in the hospital and you have to do a rape kit. Like, it's not fair to just, for someone to just, like, it's not fair for someone to just disregard you being a human to satisfy their own needs when there are thousands of people in the world that will give it to them without having to take it. And it's just like Christina said, if a woman is unconscious, that how could you get a yes or no? Like, obviously, you know, she's not in her right mind, so what would make you think that it's okay to have sex with someone that's unconscious, or, you know, just take advantage of them in any way? You should take them to a safe place, because it's just a terrible thing to do.
And like, I remember just coming into college and thinking about how, because on the inside, I'm not giving no brothers no type of excuses when it comes to situations like that, because everybody has that instinct in their inside them what right and wrong is, and a lot of people like to go against it. It made me uncomfortable when I would like hang out with guys, like, and this is me coming into college, we just getting to know each other and stuff like that. So I'm just finding like different groups of people to hang out with, and one of them biggest turn off for me, just dealing with other men, like just in a friendship level, it was just like, I can't deal with you if your idea of like, hey, let's go meet girls. It's like, okay, cool. Like, I'm down to that. Like, I'm down with meeting girls. And then you're like, yeah, because we're going to get like mad alcohol, and we're going to get weed, and then, you know, then we're going to get them to this point. And I'm like, yo, wait a minute, what? Like that. That's the part I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm not with that. It's just, it makes me uncomfortable. Like, I don't even think of it like, oh, you know, we could go to jail or nothing like that. I'm just thinking in my mind like, there's just something on the inside of me. Like, I may not even be able to vocalize it at the time, but it's just something inside of me that says, yo, this ain't right. And I feel like that's in everybody. And some people choose to disregard it. So it's even in the point where you feel like you're raised a certain way. Like, you know, there was even some parts of me that at times, I'll admit, that I felt obligated at times. And I don't feel that way anymore. But at the time, I felt like that because that's what the guys around me were talking about. Because that's what, like, men growing up taught them about it. Like, my pops never taught me that, but it was just, like, what my friends was talking about. And they said, like, after a certain amount of time, after you do this, if you do that. But in the end, it's like, you know, if you get a no, then you just pick up your ball and keep moving. At the end of the day, like, if you can find somebody, they're like y'all said, y'all can find somebody else that can do that for you. You don't have to take advantage of somebody that obviously isn't with it.
My dad was actually telling me a story one time about how he lived back in Jersey, and he was in his early 20s, and he was talking to this young lady, and um, things were getting heated, like you mentioned earlier, and he was saying that the girl was the one that was like bringing up sex, and that she was showing interest in it, but when it came to that point, the girl said no.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, like a switch went off in his head, and he was like, yo, why would I keep on trying
Mm-hmm.
to pursue this girl if she said no? It doesn't matter that previously before she talked about it, or hell, she took her clothes off in front of you, or she sent you news. Like, it doesn't matter what previously happened before that moment. If she said no, then you make a conscious decision whether or not you're going to pursue her. Because if you do, then that's considered rape. And like, people really don't want to wrap their head around the idea of rape. I've even heard some people say, "Oh, well, I wouldn't call that rape." Well, what would you call it? Like, you took advantage of someone and they didn't want that to happen. So what would you call it?
That's another point about that is like how people say sex and they say non-consensual sex. There is no such thing as non-consensual sex. It's just rape. Because they try to make it seem like there's two different categories of sex. Sex is something that's only sex. It's put in that category if it's consensual on both parties.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they even try to, in a way, downplay it by saying non-consensual sex is bullshit. And I don't know, it's not something that even, it's not a term that even should be used. It's rape. That's another reason, like I said, people just trying to downplay rape.
Yeah, that's true.
Sentences.
And I remember when I was going through my situation of grieving, I was like thinking to myself, like, why would these two guys that I know do this to me? Like, I had those thoughts in my head, like, is it really considered rape? Like, I mean, I know I was unconscious, but it's just a hard thing to battle with, because you start feeling worthless and you start feeling disgusting, and you start feeling like, what could I have done to change the situation, when in actuality there was nothing you could do. Because even if you weren't unconscious and someone decides to rape you, like, that's not on your end that person tries to rape you. Or you might be running outside and they knock you across the head with a beer bottle and then rape you in the woods. Like, you have no control over what someone else tries to do to you. And the biggest thing for me was like trying to comfort myself and try to love myself even after someone made me feel that disgusted and made me feel that low. And I just think that it's just a lot of emotions that you go through that people will never understand unless they go through that.
Another thing I want to add on is the fact that people, like, even growing up, especially watching things like Law and Order and stuff like that, people think that you only get raped if you're in some random area, like how Nadia said, you're just outside running and you get knocked over the head and you're dragged into the woods by somebody you don't know. That's over 80% of that is not the case. Most rapes are people you know. That usually do that to you. So that's another reason why you feel conflicted and confused, and you might think that it's not, or you blame yourself. And that's not the case. Like, people are disgusting, and they usually want you more because they know you and they know how awesome you are or whatever, and so they feel like they have to take it, and that's like so crazy.
And it is unfortunate that it does happen to a lot of people that are close to you, and then it does create that doubt and everything like that. Because it is also it also kind of goes back to that people are not being taught exactly what that definition is, because people are being shown these images and they're even having these conversations at all. They're having these conversations, and it's making it seem like, oh, if you do this, it won't happen to you. Like the whole notion that if you're dressed a certain way, you're asking for it, or you not even in just rape, but just in general, like you have you get a certain level of respect if you dress a certain way. Like we were talking about the Amber Rose slut walk earlier before we started recording, and we were talking about how the whole idea, bless you. We were talking about how the whole idea of her cause is that trying to change the definition of what that is, and the whole notion that, if you look a certain way or you dress a certain way, you are going to be approached a certain way or talked about a certain way or even taken advantage of. And, you were asking for it. Even though I may not agree with how she's going about it, I respect the message. Like, because when you look up the definition of what a slut is, it's directly references a woman. So it's already a biased definition. I don't even know the correct word, but it's already a biased definition of this is a woman. This is only a trait that a woman can carry. So it's that double standard of men can do this, but women can't do this, or they're going to be treated a certain way, and then that leads into rape culture because they feel like that the woman has no value. Right. So, I'm all against that. I've always said that I've never agreed with the double standard that comes with that because of the negative, and then especially because of the negative implications that has carried over from it, is basically making excuses for rape.
Yeah, actually, that just made me think about a certain situation with one of my friends. So, previously, she honestly has slept around. She got a name, around her school, and that actually led to her being raped because this guy was like, "Oh, well, you slept with such and such and such and such.
Mm-hmm.
You must want to sleep with me too." And he took it upon himself to do it, although she didn't want to, and he didn't see an issue with it because, like I said, I guess he felt like because she slept with so many men, she was devalued, and she all of a sudden was just somebody who wanted to sleep with everybody. So that's something that's like you said, one other thing, and it goes into the rape culture and just devalues women as a whole, and it's so disgusting, so sad. Like,
I actually have a teacher that I knew back in my high school who came to me when I went through my incident, and she told me, she cried to me actually, and she told me, "I know what you're going through because I've been there." And she told me how her husband raped her and how they were going through like a hard time in their relationship, and their marriage was kind of coming to an end, and so she didn't really feel the sexual connection anymore, and she just felt disgusting to want to be with him in that type of way. And so he started raping her because he felt like, "You're my wife and I want sex and you're going to give me sex." And he told her that if she ever went and told anyone about him doing that to her, that he was going to shoot her and her kids in the head. And so people get this idea that if you know someone, well, how they rape you because you know them, or you was dating this person, so how you going to say that they raped you? It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, if it's not two people making a consensual, pact to have sex, then it is rape. Point blank, period.
And it's just like, man, if you're in a marriage and your woman is not giving you sex and you feel like you want to have sex, that's what divorce is for. And I mean, it may sound harsh, but hey, I would rather, if the only other option that you can come up with in your head is taking it from your woman, you might as well just go ahead and get a divorce.
Yeah, like I said, it's harsh, but I have to agree because the divorce might be traumatic, but it will be nowhere near as traumatic as you knowing that this person that you loved and trusted took advantage of you in that way. Like, I just can't think of anything worse, honestly.
And then put your kids in it by saying, if you tell someone, "I'm gonna I'm gonna shoot you and the kids in the head.
Yeah.
Imagine how she felt when she had to go in a courtroom and sit across from him and tell the judge what her husband did to her. People don't even think about that, the aspect of sitting in front of your rapist and a jury of people and trying to plead your case about someone taking advantage of you. It's like, it's not the best thing in the world. It's a scary thing for one. You never know, like, what will happen to you.
And then it's really hard to tell people that, the man that you decided to take vows with is the one that took advantage of you that way. I know that's got to make it even extra traumatic. And then, just it goes back to the obligation thing, which, there's this idea that once you jump the broom with somebody, that there is no in a marriage, which, it's one of those things that I talked about before. Getting back to Amber Rose, I keep thinking about. It's funny because it actually this segment inspired the idea of doing this episode was when she was on Tyrese and Rev Run's talk show, and she said that Tyrese and Rev Run were honestly being dicks, and they were saying that don't you think you were getting treated a certain way? You're getting treated a certain way and you get approached a certain way because of the way you dress. And she's like, I don't care if I'm butt naked and this dude is rock hard with a condom on. If I decide at that point that I want to say no, then I can say no. But then kind of go back to my earlier point was that it's another, going back to the other side of the coin, it's that if you get to that point, kind of like my stop and start conversation, but at this point, you're butt naked, I'm not saying that I'm condoning it, but we all know that it's like lesser men out here that would probably not be able to turn back or not think that they can't turn back. And it's like, yeah, you said no, but it's like, I would, then you got to look at it like, why did you let it get to that point? Because then this was when it was presumed consensual at this point. And up until that point, and, I thought you were good to go. And then you tell me, no, not really. It's like, well, damn. And then like maybe a split second later, I could have been in some serious trouble if we in the progress of doing this, and then you tell me halfway through no. Because at any point she could tell you no. And of course that's a woman's right. But then it's like, how do we move forward from this? How would I be able to be, because then now I'm like, well, what if that man decided not to deal with you no more, and you have a certain amount of time with his DNA is still fresh in you, and then you can use this as a way to be like, oh, this is my way of getting back at him.
Unfortunately, people are crazy as hell.
And I know I kind of went in a roundabout way in thinking about it, but it's like, it could happen. Well, there's men that go to jail, that have been released from jail after 40, 50 years of being incarcerated for a crime of rape that they never committed. And no type of justice, no type of repercussions have went to the woman that has falsely accused them of what they did.
I think it kind of goes back again to how you were raised, because I know me, after I was raped, I had like a hard time accepting myself again and accepting my body. And so when I got in a relationship with this guy who I was really comfortable with, the sex thing for me was hard as hell. And I thought to myself, how can I ever be comfortable again with someone when someone literally took something from me? Like, I thought I would never get to the point where I was able to like give my body to someone. It took a long time. And I would say that the first time, over a year and a half later of me being raped, I still got emotional every time I thought about any sexual encounter. Like, it could just be kissing. If the kissing gets too heated, I get emotional. And I remember the first time that me and my ex-boyfriend tried to, be sexual, I cried, and he knew of the situation, and he tried to comfort me in the best way he could. But in that moment, he still could have tried to make me have sex with him, even though he knew I was uncomfortable. So it kind of goes back to the person, because if she's butt naked, you don't know what she's been through before you. Like, she could have been comfortable until this point, and now that she's butt naked in front of you, she's like, I don't know if I can do it. Not to say that I was the one that was butt naked in front of him, but it's the same concept. Like, I thought I was ready to have sex with him because I loved him and I was comfortable with him. But when the moment came, I was like, yeah, no, I'm not ready. I thought I was ready, but I'm not ready. And he respected my wishes, and when I was ready, then, he respected when I was ready, and he made sure to ask me, like, are you sure? We don't have to. He didn't push me to be ready. He let me get ready on my own. And I will forever respect him for that. And I feel like a part of that helped me to heal a little bit faster or easier than some people that have no one.
So can we all agree that the definition of consent itself is as black and white as we previously mentioned? Or is it deeper than that?
Well, I mean, to keep it simple, I would say that it is black and white. If the person says no, just don't do it. Just to be safe. Like you said, whether it is somebody, like you say, you never know what the person could be going through, what their intentions are with you, as far as like something malicious, as far as like, trying to set you up or whatever. But at the end of the day, if somebody says no, you're better off just not doing it. A lot of guys that I've been with always ask me, like, especially the first time, they ask me, can we do this? Are you ready to do this? Would you like to? Whatever. Or it's a thing where they know for sure, like, because but also there's a lot of dudes who just tried it, and I'm like, no. And they'll be like, why? I'm just like, what do you mean why? Because I don't want to. I can even talk to you about sex. It doesn't mean that I'm ready to do it or I want to do it. So like I said, if someone says no, just don't do it. Or if they're not in a position, like intoxicated.
Which I've gotten so far away from that, because I thought about how people would almost make it like it's fun, like, oh yeah, drunk sex or high sex is the best sex. I was like, look, man, if you are not 100% sober, we can't do this. Because
you don't know that person that well.
Because like I said, I don't want no type of miscommunication, no misunderstandings.
Yeah,
this is
smart.
A solid yes
smart.
or no.
Right. I think that consent is yes or no, but I feel like over time, consent was just watered and washed away. And people don't look for that yes or no, and people don't ask. People let actions speak, and they say, oh, she slid in my DM, she trying to be down. Like, it just, actions started to be quote unquote consent, and people didn't look for that yes or no, or people didn't ask, like, are you really trying to have sex, or like, can we come to an agreement that this is what we want to do? Like, now that I think about it, I don't even, people don't even ask anymore. You in the moment, and she must be down because we here and it's 3 o'clock in the morning. What if I just want to talk all night, and maybe I'm not trying to be down, but I enjoy your company and I feel like I'm vibing with you, and here you are whipping it out thinking, oh, I thought you was down.
Or in the same sense, say you were down the first time, and this time you don't want to do it. There should be no obligation on the other person's end to try to force you to do it in that moment. Oh, you did it before, so I don't want to do it now. So I don't know. For the most part, I do say it's black and white. Aside from situations where it's not clear what the consent is, then that should just be no. That's just automatically just don't do it.
Okay, we're actually running out of time here, so we're just gonna wrap up for a second. Any final thoughts from the both of you?
I just want to say thank you so much for allowing us to be a part of your podcast and talk about something that's so near and dear to both of our hearts.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
That's no problem. I feel like it's an important. I like to use the podcast as a way to have important conversations, and I feel like this is a very important conversation that needs to be had. Where can the people find you two individually and Worthy Women?
Okay, so my name's Christina, and I have Instagram. It'll be underscore down to Mars, and the two is like the number. As far as Worthy Women, there's no social media for that, but you can get in contact with anyone in the NCCU's counseling center, and they can direct you to us.
Also, my Instagram is Nadia Forever. Plain and simple, NADIYAH Forever. And I also recently started a blog, which is worthycorner.wordpress.com. So, yeah, any of those sites you can find us.
And I'll definitely leave the information in the description to the podcast. So anybody that's listening that also wants to get, have the conversations with them, and maybe even looking for some support from Worthy Women, we can definitely definitely leave that contact info so y'all can make that connections happen. But this has been another episode of the Dangerous Minds podcast. I'd like to thank Worthy Women for being a part of this discussion today. A little longer than most of our podcasts, but it was too much to contain in just 30 minutes. So,
Yes, man.
But hit up the Instagram, Dangerous Minds podcast, all one word on Instagram. Join the conversation and tune in next week for another episode. Thank you, and we out.